Hello. Oh my God. How did that mic get muted? What a mess. What a messy start to the show. Hopefully you can hear me now. Um, well, that's always exciting. It's always some kind of chaos when I start this thing. The name of the show, Swami Streams, coding fun and a little bit of chaos. And that part has never let me down. There's always been a little something. What are we going to do on the show today? Let's get right to it. Today's show, I'm going to be writing some code, which is, kind of normal. And I think today's show is going to be mostly sort of like continuing with that application logic that we started last time. And then we'll keep doing unit tests, and we're going to get this basic application up and running. I want to say hi. I see Jess Chadwick's out there, Space Shot's there. Hello, hello, hello to anybody that's watching now. And if you're watching and you haven't said hello, feel free to join the chat and say hi. I don't think I got the right. Let's see. Wait a second. I thought I fixed that. Or yeah, that's what I want to show. I like to show the chat window so people can see what other people are saying, because we're cross streaming on 3 different platforms, right? If you're out there on Twitch, how you doing? If you're out there on Mixer, YouTube, how you guys doing? The chat gets a little weird, but if you look on the screen, on the stream part, you can see the chat that comes in from the other places, and who knows? We'll see how long and how that all works out. So I want to get into writing some code. Let's do that. Let's see. I'll switch over to my desktop. All right, and we've got a Visual Studio solution here that I've been working on. And in our last show, sorry, I'm looking around to see what's going on around here. There's so much to keep track of. Got to settle down, Swami. Settle down. Let's write some code. In our last episode, we were working on this simple little API. And wow, I'm getting hosted by the Dev Talk Show and Philly Azure and Static Void Podcast. This is cool. I appreciate the support. In our last episode, we were starting to work on this silly little website that is going to support me doing all kinds of things for the stream, all kinds of samples and demos, and working with you guys to write all kinds of different kind of code. And it's going to basically have this very simple, the first thing we're working on, just never really sure how far to go back on some of these things, but just to get it up to speed, if you're new, we're building a simple website for the stream, Swami Streams, and the first feature we're adding is that we'll see a list of episodes on the stream with links to the episode, descriptions, and tags and things like that. That'll give me a little something to work with. Just adjusting the mic here. That'll give me a little something to work with for the purposes of, coding and testing, and then eventually we'll add in all kinds of features, right? Well, hopefully we'll have some fun with this. At the beginning of this thing, basically what there is there's this orchestrator. I use the term orchestrator to represent a top-level service, for lack of a better term, right? And so we're going to have something called the episode history orchestrator to get me a list of the episodes in history, and it has a method called get history, which takes some parameters. By the way, what do you think of that? I call these things orchestrators. What do you guys do when you write code? Do you have naming conventions that you find are helpful? One of the things I've noticed over the years is if you name something correctly, it makes a big difference. If you name something correctly, it gives you context as to what that thing is and how it works and what it's going to do. And it's helpful. So we have this get history method, and within the get history method, we do a couple things. First thing we do is validate that the arguments that are passed in are correct. We did that. We worked on that last time. The next thing I want to do is I want to get the data that represents the shows. Now I have this episode repository in here, which is not what I want to do. But I put that in there just for real quick proof of concept to get in there. And what I'd like to do in this show is work on getting the data for the episodes in a nice, really clean and easy to maintain, easy to organize way. That's like my main focus tends to be. My main priority is writing code that's maintainable and clean and things like that. So if you're wondering why I choose some of these patterns, that tends to be the driving force. What I want to do is, see, I have a repository, and I talked last show a little bit about the repository pattern. I don't believe that business logic should be in the repository. And filtering out the episodes that we want to display is business logic. It might be simple business logic, but it's business logic just the same. So I want to add another layer in here, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, and this is my typical naming convention, I'm going to create another folder under my mini, I call these things mini services. These are like all the little single responsibility objects that do the stuff for my application, right? I'm going to call this data services, and I'm going to create a data service. And, love to know what everybody thinks about this. Plural, is it data service? Is it data services? Who knows? I'm going with plural right now, and everyone has their preference on how to do these things. I'm going to add a new class, and I'm going to call this the episode data service. So the episode data service, and I'm just thinking about this because I haven't really planned this out too much, because that's what we do in a live stream. And by the way, I'm trying to figure out if I should write some of this code off the stream. I think I might start doing that. Start to fill in some of the blanks just to keep the show moving along. Keeping this show to 1 hour is challenging, and try to do one thing in an hour is challenging. And I like that. So far, that's worked out really well in the last couple episodes, that I've been able to wrap this up into an hour. But I think it's going to be helpful if I write some code off the stream, but I'll come back to that later. So let's just sort of stub this out. I'm not really sure what it's going to do, but I know I want to get back a set of episodes. And an episode is a let's see, I think I have something. Sorry, I got to spell it right. I think I have episode as an object. No, not that. I think it's called an episode. I'll just say get episodes. Something like that. Of course, that's not a list. I'll change that to be a list once I get this stuff in here. Yeah, my backend model is called an episode. I've got a method called get episodes. I want to return a list, but the way I tend to do things is return iQueryables. And there's a reason I do that, as opposed to returning lists. So I tend to look at this as, hang on, let's just get this in here and I'll explain this. Oh, no, that's not right. iQueryable. That would make more sense, right? So I tend to use these things called like data services as my wrapper for getting data in and out. And then the repository is a little bit more of a mechanical thing. And so the repository is underneath the episode, the data service. So I might have an episode data service, and I might have, I don't know, let's say I have guests on the show, and I have a guest data service, and I want to do a join between guests and episodes. Then by returning an iQueryable, sometimes I find it's helpful to take a result from an episode data service and a result from a guest data service, and I can still sort of join those together because the queryable hasn't been executed yet. And so it's just a way to do some of that. We'll see where that goes, and we'll see if we keep it for this particular stuff. But what I want to do is I want to accept some parameters into here. We had parameters from before I think it was called the get, what was it called? Let's take a look. And maybe pin this open for now. Under DTO, I have a get history DTO. That's what we're talking about here. It's really a parameter, but get history DTO, and I'll call it parameters or arguments. What should I call it? Arguments. Or how about parameters? Whatever. I don't know. Naming things always gets me into trouble. So now we're going to get this list of episodes, and this is barking at me. So let's just see if I can do something like can I make a new queryable? I don't know if you can even do that. Well, let's just leave it as complaining for now. This it doesn't like. Got to add all my usings in here. And so essentially what this thing is going to do is it's going to use the repository. So let's just get an instance of my repository in there. The repository is called the episode repository. So I'm going to say private read-only episode repository. And I'll call it the episode repository. You know, I'm really used to... and so if you're watching last week, I was complaining, and it just brought up something. I was kind of bugging out a little bit, because when I was doing the unit tests, I was expecting to see... I'm going to kind of jump to something else here. I'm going to jump to some unit tests. And I was kind of expecting to see these little icons in here that allow you to run the unit tests. And I kept saying, well, I did everything right. And what I realized afterwards is that is a resharper feature, right? And I'm not using resharper on my home install of Visual Studio. I kind of wanted to keep it clean and pure. I've got some other extensions installed, but I do like when I use resharper that it offers to name these things with underscores. At least I think that's a resharper feature. So my point is, sometimes I struggle between different environments, whether I'm at home or whether I'm at work. And which tools do I have installed? And so sometimes that gets me a little confused. Let's do that. And then let's add a constructor. And I will inject in an episode repository into here. And just set that equal to be episode repository equals episode repository, right? So, okay. So that thing will work. And essentially what I want to do now is I want to say episode repository all. That's the method I exposed for my repository. That basically gives me the whole data set. And I can say, essentially, I'm going to say sort of like where, what am I going to do here? Well, what I want to do, let's do some filtering. This doesn't, it has page size and page number, but I was thinking about adding search criteria to this. So what if I said something like public string search criteria? This is really off the top of my head. What if I said something like, I want to get all the episodes where e.title, let's do includes, no, contains, sorry, contains, and I'll say parameters dot search criteria. So that'll work. The problem with that's going to be case sensitivity. I think there's a way to do, yep, string comparison dot ignore. I don't know. Some of these things get me confused. Current culture ignore case, invariant culture ignore case, ordinal ignore case. What the heck do those things mean? Can I see? Returns a value, yeah. Just the enumeration. So I don't know the difference between these, quite frankly. I usually do it too lower. How important is it to get the DTO right early in the project? Can it be painful to change later? Space Shot, thanks for that question. I don't think it's painful to change it later, assuming, yeah, it's, you know, what do we always say? It depends, right? But the whole point is that I'm passing around parameters. If I was to do something, I find where it gets more complicated is if I was to do something like string search criteria int page size int page number. If I was to do that, then I find adding parameters gets really complicated because, well, I have interfaces and I have methods and I have I have to go to all the places and make changes to these things, and it really sort of changes the structure. My preference, I think, is to use something. Let's go back to what I had before. I'm Control-Zing a whole bunch of times. I find that when you do use a parameters object, it does simplify, and you don't have to get it right exactly. Now, there's going to be pain in different ports, but that's my feeling. And so, Alvin, I usually use ordinal ignore case with the contains or string.compare operations. So let's go with what Alvin's saying, string compare ordinal ignore case. And if you know what ordinal ignore case means, please feel free to share. I don't know. Well, it says using ordinal binary sort rules and ignoring the case of the strings being compared. So that's probably like the default one. Love the interaction here. SpaceShot says, so you feel like you can change the object in one place and have less ripple effects other than recompilation. That's my feeling, yeah. And with individual parameters, you have changes in lots of places. That is what I'm trying to say, and I appreciate you saying it in a probably more concise way than I did. But it does seem to be a nice pattern to allow me to only change it in one place. And then there might be other places where if I was to pass this thing to various methods, maybe some of those other methods don't even care that I made the change. So I don't have to change everything so much. The object just goes along for the ride. So I was looking at, so my feeling again now I was saying is the episode repository is doing its job. It's returning all. It's executing the query. The query is created by the data service, and that is why I inject this sort of data service in between. Some people that I've worked with like that. Some people don't. I get it. It's personal preference. So I think that's all I need to do in this particular data service. Let's see. I haven't put in the paging and sorting yet. Let's come back to that. Ooh, I feel a sneeze coming on. Maybe that passed. So now what I'll do is I will turn this into an interface. And somewhere along the line, like I said before, I'm used to different tools that do things in different ways. I think I can do it right here, extract interface, and I like to keep it in the current file. That's my preference, by the way. I keep interfaces in the current file, and that is and I'm also going to remove my usings. I hate to have these things sorted. Oh, thank you. Yes, I did I sneeze, or I think I held it back? I can't even remember. When you're streaming, everything's like, what did I sneeze? I know I was thinking about sneezing. So I put my interfaces in the class file. Now that's not always the case. If I have interface, that's Unicode knows. That is, so I put my interfaces in the same file, and I don't know if that's what you guys do or don't. But this is my very simple episode data service, and I have an episode data service interface. We had an interesting conversation on the Dev Talk Show last week. By the way, the Dev Talk Show is another stream that SpaceShot is on, by the way. And Rich Ross and I, we get together and we have the Dev Talk Show, which is Wednesday evenings at about 8:30. Sometimes we start late. The Dev Talk Show on Mixer and Twitch and on YouTube. And we had an interesting conversation about the idea of Chris SpaceShot was sharing some stuff about should we use an I for an episode data service? Should we always put an I in front? And we're sort of following what the standard is as it was written with .NET. That's the way that the .NET framework exposes interfaces, and we follow that along. But it was really an interesting conversation. I don't want to go too far into it about why do we feel the need to do that when, if I had a string, you would all kill me as I would kill you if I said string first name, right? No, do not do that. That's really bad. And And yeah, Space Shot says it is somewhat unique to .NET, and it was an interesting conversation. So if you're curious about any of that, check out on YouTube the Dev Talk Show. Maybe Space Shot will post in a URL because I'm moving fast. I don't have time to do that, but check out that episode where we talked about those kind of things. It's just an example of the kind of stuff we talk about on the Dev Talk Show. So I made my interface, and I'm going to go back to my orchestrator, and I'm going to add in that dependency. No. Yes. I'm going to add in that dependency. Read only episode. I always spell episode. Certain words I always spell wrong. Episode. Oh my gosh. Episode data service. Episode data service. Oh, my typing is always fun. Oh yeah, video.thedevtalkshow.com. How did I forget that simple URL? Go with that. And I really don't need the repository anymore. Let's just get rid of that so we don't have to worry about it anymore. And let's just put this in its place because we're not going to use the repository directly in here. And, you know, these are my naming conventions, so I use underscores. I do use underscores for class level variables. What do you think of that? Some people hate it. I find it just is one of those throwback things. I know it's not maybe modern, but I find it helpful. Thanks, Alvin, that you use them too. You know, does it? You know, the funny thing is, like, does it matter if other people use them? Not really, right? Do what you want to do. But it's so great to get that validation from someone that you know, or someone that you know, that you say like, oh yeah, you do it the same way, so I'm not crazy. It's nice to hear. I'm probably crazy in a lot of other ways. But anyway, let's go down to here and let's get rid of this. And all I really need to do is say episode data service dot get episodes, and I'm going to pass in my criteria, my parameters. What did I call it up here? I called it the get history DTO. Let's pass it into there. And I will need to to-list. I don't need to to-list it because I have this for each. So that's going to, I use them for function level variables, but gave up on it. Freestyle Coder, thanks for your comment. I used to use them for function level variables, but gave up on it. So for function level, which is scoped closer in here, I don't, right? Anything that's in the function here or in the method level variables, I just use good old, what is that, camelback notation? Or in this case, it's all lowercase, so you can't really tell. But anything that's up in the class, I go with the underscore. And I feel like it gives me an indication when I'm in here that this is something that comes from above. Anyway, let's keep going. And I did that. So I validated it, and then I got the episodes, and this should still work with a couple of caveats. First is that the dependency injection isn't going to work right because I have to configure that. Well, and then I have to update my unit tests because I added another, I want to do I need to validate that that parameter is not null? I probably should. Well, if that's a null, that's going to cause trouble. So we'll come back to that, I guess, on unit testing. Let's just see. No, you know what? Let's not. Let's write unit tests. So I have this validator that validates the get history DTO. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in to tests, validators, and on the validate method, I should say, oh, you know what? Let's go into the validator. Oh, you know what I could do? Oh, this will be cool. This would be like test first, which is not something I usually do, but it came to me in that order. So why not? So, and I think, by the way, that I'm going to rename all my tests in one of the next episodes to follow more like a BDD. This is a really lame version of, it's a good testing strategy naming, but it's not ideal. And I think I'm going to switch to more of like a BDD with like a when, like a given, when, and then strategy for naming, but I'm going to keep it as it is for now. Oh, wait, let's do something even better. Let's turn on live unit testing, which we used last time. Live unit testing. I think I need to do that. I think it's going to pop open a window. Yeah, it did. It's on a different screen. So, whoop, how do I get that over here? Okay, so I've got this live unit testing screen. Maybe I'll just sort of leave that up there and see what happens. So I'm going to add a new test, public void if what's it called? If search criteria is null, return a message. Something like that, right? I think that's going to be kind of close. So I'm going to copy some of this stuff. And so you notice, by the way, tests are working. It already started testing my changes. So if I put in something like assert.false, and I pass a true into it, which of course is silly, then I should see that that test fails because it's doing live unit testing, and you can see that right off. So if you haven't done live unit testing, go ahead and start trying this. It's super cool and saves a lot of hassle in trying to run the tests all the time. Okay, so I need this get history validator, which is the system I'm testing, or system under test. I'm going to create a DTO, and then I'm going to, let's see, where is it? I'm going to do something like this. And I want to say if search criteria is null, which I guess it should be right now, then I want to do this. I don't even know what the message is going to be. I want to say search criteria cannot be null, I guess. Let's do another one. And now that's passing, which it shouldn't be. And that's probably because it's not null. Because what is this? Is it string? It's probably empty by default or something. Let's see. I'll probably fix this. Like search criteria is null, is not null. Return no message. Okay. And oh, this says does not contain. Oh, okay. Contains. Let's go back and fix this. Okay. So now I said contains, and look at that. So now I have two tests. If I did this right. By the way, Freestyle Coder, I see another comment here. I love live unit tests, but I'm so deep in integration test mode these days that they all take 2 minutes to run. Yeah, well, integration testing is sort of a whole other topic and can be slow. There's, I'd love to get into, and some of the next tests we write, love to see if what I'm doing is going to be similar to what Freestyle Coder's doing, and maybe talk about some strategies for integration testing, which, I'm going to use mocks and things like that and try to keep them running slow. Sometimes you really need to do an actual integration test where your code calls a dependency and things can really take a long time and things can get complicated. Let's take a look at what I got here. So I wrote 2 tests. This is really rare for me. I'm actually kind of proud of myself. I did test first here, which I never do. So what I'm basically expecting is I have to go now and fix my validator. So let's move this off screen for a bit and go up to my validator. And I have under validators in my organization here, I have 1 validator so far. You can see that tests are failing on here now. So I want to say that if DTO.search criteria is null, then I'll just copy this in here and say, and I guess I have to go get that. I guess I have to get this and put that in here. And let's see if this works as I'm thinking about it. Let's see if search criteria is null. My test is running. It ran. And it still failed. Cert does not contain. Thinking for a second. The hard part is thinking while you stream. So let's just see. It's failing. Search criteria is null. Validation messages add. Search criteria cannot be null. Do I have to, since I changed the code, I'm going to compile. I don't think I need to do that, but still sort of new with live unit testing and things like that. So if search criteria is null, return a message. That worked. But if search criteria, oh, duh. Well, here's the problem. Because I didn't pass in a search criteria, it is still null. That's a silly mistake. Search criteria, whoops. And didn't really test that beforehand. So my testing in advance was flawed, but that's okay. I'm happy with this. Yeah, live unit testing, right, was telling the truth, by the way. I didn't need to compile or anything. As I knew it was telling the truth. I just don't like to admit that it's probably righter than I am, but sure, it was. Let's just put in something called foo. And we should get, oh, look at that, beautiful. Oh, I'm really happy with myself. Thank you very much. It's happened to all of us, I'm sure. I guess the unit testing thing is broken. Oh, yeah. Bruno, hey, hello, how are you? Does live unit testing require a specific Visual Studio version? Ah, Space Shot says yes. Enterprise. Did not know that. This is what I love, right? This is where this whole sort of community is coming together, where I've got where we have viewers that are asking questions, viewers that are answering questions. I'm asking questions. I'm answering questions. We're all sort of helping each other. And to me, that's so exciting. That's sort of the dream. Excuse me. That's kind of the dream for a, but Freestyle Coder says maybe all in 2019. I don't know. Let's Google it. Let's find out. There is one way to know. We're all in this together. Let's find out right now, is live unit testing included in Visual? I don't know. Let's just see if it gives me the versions and stuff. Let's see. Live unit testing is available for C# and Visual Basic projects at Target. Let's see. I didn't see does anybody see it yet? In the Enterprise edition of Visual Studio. And Space Shop posted a link to it, but I think live unit testing is available for C# and VB projects that target .NET Core or .NET Framework in the Enterprise version. I think we've got the definitive answer, assuming that that this is up to date, right? This was last changed in 2017, but the docs, a lot of times for things like that, they go back and update it. Sorry, Freestyle Coder, but here's the thing: I appreciate that we're all trying to help, and why not Google it right here live on the stream and figure it out. Where was I? Let's see. So sorry that it's not included. Yeah, you can use Test Explorer. Space Shot's right. There are other ways to run tests. That's really important. And just to show that, we did this on the last episode, but I don't mind going back real quick and saying I could show Test Explorer, which popped up over here. And with Test Explorer, I can go through and I can run any of the tests. For some reason, it's scoped just to here. I don't know what I did to do that. It should, backend tests. I thought I had other units. Maybe this is the only test. Oh, these are the only tests I have so far. Well, we'll have to fix that. There's another. Here's one that says a little product called NCrunch. I actually use ReSharper a lot. ReSharper has like automated test running stuff built into it, where you get, like I was saying earlier, you get like a little icon. You can right click it in here, and so other tools will help with testing. Alvin Ashcraft saying, wouldn't it be cool if they made these things purchasable additions or add-ons? That's a cool concept. I guess I don't know. This is brand marketing kind of stuff, and how do you delineate where features go? We get so much in the free versions that it's worth noting that the free, what do they call the free version? The Community Edition, maybe? Is that what it's called? You get so much stuff in there for free that, and I wonder, by the way, so this is .NET Core. So here's a question to those of you that are watching, and if you're watching now, before I ask this question, why don't I say, do me a favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me if you're on Mixer or Twitch, please. I appreciate it if you would do that for me, and come back again next time. what I was going to say, what was I going to say, is that if we were doing this in Visual Studio Code, which we could, because this is .NET Core, and I guess you maybe can do .NET Framework in Visual Studio Code. I think so. What kind of tooling would I get in Visual Studio Code? And maybe that's an idea to try out for another episode. I'm going to write that in my show notes here. Let's see. Topics. How about how is the unit test tooling different in VS Code? Writing some notes to myself. I have a huge list of things I want to talk about, but I want to try to do another step here. And so I have a couple of choices. I could go ahead and write, let's take a look at the orchestrator. The orchestrator has this data service, and I want to extract that out. And well, I did extract that. I want to write unit tests for that. I also have this logic in here. I call this business logic. It's simple, but it's business logic. I'm taking the entity that came out, each episode that came out of my database, and I'm turning them into this show history DTO, which is something that the UI can take and then display. And so I'm converting these very simple things, but to be clean, what I like to do is extract that out into something called a show history converter. And I'm going to do that real quick, and that should be pretty easy because it's so simple. And it's so simple, and sometimes people think, well, if it's so simple, why not just leave the code in here? The reason for that is that the code, sorry, wait, let me think. I add all these folders. You could like it or not like it, and I could completely understand. I find that it helps me organize. I know I have lots of converters in my projects. I know I have lots of data services. So for some of these things, I do have these folders that I like to create. You can like it or not. I find it helps me to organize. Episode history. Oh gosh, history converter. .cs. Okay, so I've got this thing. Let's make it public. And what my thing is going to do is it is going to say public episode history DTO is what I think it was called. And I'm just going to call it 2DTO. Sometimes I name these things pretty short because it's pretty common for me to take like a domain object and convert it into a DTO. So is that what I called it? Let's see. No, it's not what I called it. It's called a, where am I? Orchestrator returns. There it is. An episode history object. Oh, I have to refactor that. All right, I haven't refactored that yet. That'll be fun. Show history DTO, not an episode history. I've got mixed naming all over the place, and I'll probably regret that and want to clean that up sometime soon. Let's just do this and say show history DTO. DTO equals new. Show history DTO. That's because I didn't add my using. The joys of live coding. It's hard to get something done in an hour, right? I mean, wow, it's brutal. Let's just do this. Return DTO. Okay. And so now this thing's going to be happy. Oh, this is not the right thing. Or do I have to add a... It's not called an episode history. What? It's called an episode. Oh, that was... All right, it's just called an episode. Oh, that's nice. I didn't give it a name. Episode. I think that's right. Come on. Yay. My memory is so bad that it's hard to remember all these things. But that's okay because there's like help in Visual Studio. Let's get rid of these. I hate extra usings. Hate them. Hate them, hate them. You know what I can do? I can convert this thing into an interface right now and do that test first stuff. Wouldn't that be cool? I'm going to call it that. I'm going to leave it in there. I'm going to do that. Wow. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. I'm going to do... This is sort of test first, right? Like I created the thing. Some people would say you should do it before you even create the thing. That's not the way I roll. That's way too complicated. So I'm going to go to my test project, and under the same structure, mini, I'm going to add a folder. I'm going to say converters. And following my naming pattern, I'm going to create another folder. And I'm rethinking a lot of this, but I'm going to keep going with the way I tend to do it. get history validator test. This is going to be called the episode history converter tests. Okay, and then I name that folder, and then inside it I'm going to get a class, and my class is going to be named toDTO because that is the method I'm testing. I make a class for each method. Again, thinking about changing some of those things, but we'll get there. Public class toDTO, and my first test is going to be a public void copies. This is really, again, working on the naming on some of these things, but copies search criteria. And that is what the test is going to be called. I'll put my test fixture on there, or my fact, sorry, which tells NUnit that I'm a test, or sorry, XUnit, again, habit, old habits, using NUnit versus XUnit. And let me just check something real quick. Just looking around here, making sure. Okay, sorry for the distraction here. So what I want to do is make sure that it copies the search criteria into the results. So the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create excuse me, got a little tickle. This is good. This is going to be setting me up for the next show. I know that if I complete this now, the next show, I'm going to talk about how do I test this get history method, which is in the orchestrator, that calls all these other things to do its work for them. Let's bang this out real quick. That's going to be great. That's what I know the next show is going to be. And so copy search criteria. So I need to create the episode history converter, oops, tests, converter, and I'm going to say SUT, because this is the thing that I'm testing, equals new episode history converter, and do that. And then I need to create a search criteria. What did I call it? Well, here it is right here. I need an episode. I'm going to say episode equals new episode. And yeah, adding all my usings. And I'll admit, I think ReSharper makes that easier. It lights them up faster, and I have some keystrokes I just hit, and it fills in all those usings for me. Maybe there's a way that I could be doing it. I wonder, hang on, I want to try something. If I take out model, that's the thing I just added. That thing's going to fret. Now, see, Control Plus will show fixes. Let's just see. I think there's some ways. I didn't do it. What does it say? Control plus period. Sorry, period shows the fixes, and then I could just say enter. So that's faster. So that's like a keystroke right there, right? Did you get what I did? Luckily, my little tooltip thing, whatever you call that, is showing the keystrokes I enter. So I say Control plus period, and then I can move right on, and it adds it for me. And that's so much easier than going and right-clicking and all that kind of stuff. So great. Let's do this. Let's say system under test dot toDTO, and I'll pass my episode in there. And that is going to work. And then I'm going to say, what's it called? I called it a show history. I named that thing bad. What was it called? A show history? A show history DTO. Wow. Refactoring could be another episode, right? I'll just call it DTO. Now let's do that again. Let's see if I... Oh, no. See, I'm used to that other... I'm used to a different keystroke. So I'm here. I don't know if I can do... Can't do that when I'm not on there. So I guess you have to still click it. I don't know. Try to figure out best ways to do some of these things. So anyway, what I just did is I set up this test, although lamely. I haven't put anything into here. And I would be expecting it to copy the search criteria. So what I want to do is I want to say assert equal, and I'll say the first thing is what I expect. So what I expect is the episode dot search criteria. Oh, no, this isn't right. Episode, I did something wrong here. Oh, copy search criteria. I put the wrong thing in here. I was trying to move fast. This is not an episode that goes in here. Whoops. This is going to be a get history DTO, which is the criteria, right, that we're going to be passing in. It's get history. So it's like the DTO for this method. And maybe it should be called get history criteria DTO. Maybe that would be a better name for it. But in the meantime, let's fix that silly mistake. I'll put that up here. We all make mistakes, which is one of the beautiful things about watching these live streams, is seeing that, like, okay, yeah, Shwami's making dumb mistakes. I do that too. I find when I watch other people code that I feel better about myself, because I'm like, yeah, they do the same things I do. So let's say this is a get history DTO. I don't know why this is called an episode. I'll say criteria, because that's probably what this thing should be called. My phone's ringing, so I'm looking down. I'm expecting a call. I don't think that's the call I'm expecting. Got the repairman coming to fix my appliances in my kitchen today, and I'm waiting for that doorbell to ring. And I told him after 1. Hopefully that goes well. Let's see. So I'm going to put that criteria, and I want to pass that into there. And now I want to say, does the criteria's, oops, criteria dot search criteria, and that should be the DTO dot search show history. Oh, search. Oh, this doesn't even have it yet. I haven't even added it to that. Remember, I just did that before. Hang on a second. What am I validating here? I think I got a little mixed up, because we're not converting this thing into here. I am only converting the search criteria. Okay, hang on a second. I think I mixed myself up. Show history DTO. This is not what I want to validate. So I was jumping around a little bit in here. I was jumping around in here a little bit and thinking, oh, I got this validation, which validates the get history method, which we already updated. And then we have this converter, and that's the show history DTO. Yeah, you know what? I am mixing myself up. I was right before that the episode history converter does need to have an episode, and I was testing the wrong thing, and I wasn't thinking. So let's go back. I was actually right the first time. Let's see if I can undo to where I was. Boy, this was going smoothly until I started getting dumb here. Episode history, I passed the episode in there, and what I want to find out is, here we go, that the episode that came out of the database, the ID, or the title, so this is going to be copies title. Copies title. Okay, title. And the episode title is equal to the DTO.title, right? Those things should match, okay? And this test should fail. I think it should fail. Well, except I didn't put anything in there, so, you know, blank is equal to blank. So let's just say episode.title equals something. And I think that's going to fail. You're right, it fails. Great. It fails because I didn't put it in there. So let's go over to here and say, this isn't really going to be anything too complicated. DTO.title equals episode.title. Now, I'm just to be really clear here, this is not the way I would normally, look at that, the test pass. I can see it right in here that the test passed, even though I'm not even in the test. Again, a win for live unit testing. I would not write this code this way myself, right? I would most likely come in here and do a couple of these things and say, you know, the ID is equal to the ID, And the, do I have a description? What do I have? Details is equal to the details. That's, that's really the way I would do this. Then I would come back over to this to DTO, and I would write a couple more tests. And in this case, I don't think that's so bad because this logic is so simple. But choose your own method to how do you want to do these things. I'm going to say copies details, and I'll even do another one for copies ID. And I'll say details equals something else. I always feel like I got to change these things, even though the tests don't depend on one another, but I feel like I should do something, and I always put in like a random number, whatever. And now here I need to make sure that details is equal to details, and ID is equal to ID. And these tests should be passing, and I'm always nervous that I did something stupid, but I think I got it right. Copies details, copies ID. So I've got some tests on this thing. All right. So now I should go ahead and know it works. Oh, let's get rid of those. You know how I hate those. Let's go ahead and use this converter in place of what I have now. So I go back to my orchestrator and I say private read only. This is going to be a good time frame here. episode converter. Is that what I called it? I hope. So to get back to why iQueryable, I think I talked about why iQueryable space shot. Hang on one second. Let me just finish this sentence and I'll come back to it. Episode converter, and I'll call it episode converter. You may have looked away. I find it offensive that you would watch my stream and then do something in the real world, like life or work or anything like that. Of course you looked away. Yeah, it's awful. I know. Where's the respect? No, of course. No, that's not what I want. I must not have called it that. Oh, come on. What did I call it? I called it the episode history converter. Oh my God. History. I really have to think about naming for all these things, and what do I want to do? Let's do that, and I really should call this episode. I like to be consistent, and I know they're long, but they have lots of different objects and things like that. Let's put that here and say equals. I'll pass that in. It doesn't exist yet, and there are ways to, and you know what? I think there's even a way. I have different tooling, but I think I could. There's a way to. With ReSharper, is a really nice, easy way to inject these in through your constructor, but. Anyway, let's add this here. Episode history converter, episode history converter, and that works. Now let's use this thing, and let's say, now I still have this loop here, and that's another interesting thing, but let's just do this. Let's just say that here I want to, instead of converting this thing over manually, I want to say results.add episode history converter dot to DTO, and I'll pass in the episode. And that should work. Freestyle coder, i.e. the red squiggle. Yeah, you can do it as quick as a quick action from the missing param. Yeah, I thought you could. Thanks, Freestyle Coder. Let's take it away. Let's find out if I have the missing param. So I think, are you saying this? Well, oh, sorry, my wrapping is wrong. Again, like I use different tools, and oh, this one? No. I don't see it there. Well, here you could do generate field, generate read-only field. So what I could have done is, no, I don't think that's it exactly. I know there's a way. I thought that you could do it like one of these things. It depends on the order you do it in. I think if I created this, I don't know, generate parameter, it's near the bottom. Thank you. So on this one, generate parameter. Okay. That worked. That's nice. Look at that. Thank you. Freestyle Coder helping me out. again, I'll talk about. I'd like to do a whole thing on some of these tooling things because there's so many different ways to do it. But anyway, now I've got this episode history converter, and this should work. Cool, never noticed that before. Thanks. Yeah, space shot. We all like it, right? Control-dot to pull up quick actions. Yeah, I was talking about that before. You can do Control-dot. So, okay, I can clean up more usings, and what I really should do is try and see if this works. Now, I know this will fail if I try to run it now. Let's just do a compile. I always like to compile once in a while because make sure it's working. This will fail because my ASP.NET startup. Ooh, look at that. There's extra usings in there that I hate. Get rid of the old usings. So I need to add in the things we've been working with now and set them up for dependency injection. So let's add in episode history converter. Please tell me I got it right. No. Oh God. Hate myself sometimes. I need the, where was it? It is episode history converter. Episode history converter. Did I spell it wrong? There it is. I might have spelled something wrong. And let's put that one in there. And then I need to do the, what else did I add? Did I add one or did I just change one? Let's look at my changes. I added the episode data service. I knew there was something else. The episode data service. Control-dot, and I get the using. And I'll just, I think, that's what I need. Episode history convert. Yeah, let's try that. Now, the UI for this thing doesn't work. I haven't wired up the UI, so that'll be next. But in the meantime, I think what I can do is I can go right to my controller and I can see what the history will be. Let's find out if this works. There's only one thing in the capital H. Did I not have a capital H? Sorry, I'm behind. I guess it was talking about probably here. I probably didn't have a capital H in there. That's probably what you guys are telling me because it compiles now. Let's run this. I got a breakpoint in there. Let's see if this works because we're getting there. And again, hey, if you're watching this, let's hang on. Let's do this. I'm starting up debugger. If you're watching this, please do me a favor and like the episode if you're looking at it in the archives in YouTube. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube if you want to. All right, look, it got there. Hang on, let's stop that thing. If you're watching on Mixer or Twitch, do me a favor, please follow me there. And also, don't forget to tune in tonight at 8:30, the Dev Talk Show. Mixer and Twitch, the Dev Talk Show, or YouTube. You can easily get to that at video.thedevtalkshow.com, and we'll be having some fun tonight. Anyway, let's see if this worked. It's null now, and it didn't blow up. That's a good sign. And in here, I should have one object. Wait. Oh, wait, what didn't I do? So it didn't really show. Messages has one. Something didn't work. Search criteria cannot be null. Look at that. Because, and that's probably, it should be null, right? Search criteria should be a nullable thing, quite frankly. But let's do this. This is going to cause trouble. So let's do search criteria equals, I'm just going to sort of make it string dot empty. And then I realize, of course, now, as I'm thinking about this, that I broke something because, well, what is the search? Sorry, hang on. I was almost there. And back to, I'm going to check the search where the title contains something. Now, I don't know what we have in the title. So I got to look in the database. Or I could say, what I really should do is say something like, this is going to be better. I'm going to say result, var result equals, so history all, and I'm going to say if parameters dot search criteria, sorry, I have to say if string is or white space, or say if not, and then here I'll say, fixing this up a little bit. Oh, what happened there? I have a missing thing like that. And I'll say result, and I'll say where. And so basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this thing a little smarter because I forgot that I don't really have anything to search for. Oops. Result equals result dot, did I do that right? And then here I can just say return result. I probably got something wrong. Well, I certainly have an extra dot in there. Hopefully that's going to make sense. I guess I need to put some tests in for that, but we haven't tested the data service yet anyway. Now I have the empty, so that should be good enough. And let's see if this works. Is null or white space or null or empty? So is null or white space or is null or empty? Yeah, I thought that white space is sometimes better to use. Empty is it null or is it an empty string? White space adds that extra little, what if there's just a space character in there or a whole bunch of space characters? It sort of will treat them the same. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways to use these things, but let's just see if this works. It's taking a sec. Oh, that's good. So it means it probably did some kind of thing. My count is 1, and in there I have test. So test was my search. I should have put that in there. So this thing worked. So that's great. What I'm going to do now, this is what my website's going to look like at some point, and then the grid is below is going to. There's going to be a grid here that has the episodes or something like that. I'll figure that out when I get there. First thing I want to do before I do anything else is I want to check in my changes. I'm going to say refactored out. You always want to check things in. Oh, 2,000 sparks. Oh, Rich Ross. Wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's exciting. Refactored out data or added data service and converter. That's probably good enough for now because this will give me the idea. So what I think on the next episode, and I really hope if you guys are having fun, please come back and watch again. On the next episode, I think the next thing to do is talk about how to test. Let's close all these things because it's a little noisy. I hate having things open. Are you guys like that? I don't like to have all these tabs open. I find myself closing things all the time and then coming back in and finding what I need to find. So I think the next thing we'll do next week is test this get history method and talk about the techniques for testing when you have all these services that are injected in. And also, I don't know. That'll be it. So listen, it's 5 after. You've given me your time for a while, and I appreciate it. I'm trying to keep these shows right about to an hour, and it's working out pretty well. Yeah, I accept tabs as my new overlords. Right. You're probably Space Shot, one of those guys that if you go to their desktop, they have like 1,000 icons on their Windows desktop, and it's just like complete chaos, right? No, I don't know if you do that, but yeah, Rich Ross, all your tabs open, all browser tabs are open. If the browsers didn't suck up so much memory, then maybe I would probably do that. I find myself closing those as well. And yeah, it's so hard to stay organized and keep things clean. So listen, that's it. I hope to see you all tonight on the Dev Talk Show. I hope to see you back next week for this Swami Stream show. I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you so much for being with me, and thanks for sharing your tips with me. I learned some stuff from you guys, and and it's been fun. And I don't know why it says nice GIF. I'm not sure what that's in question to, but anyway, I'm hanging up, and see you next week.